Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Mr. Gaming Counselor. We are back in the counselor's office. Sorry, Jeff is on break. But here we are. We're doing a live, it's not live, but we're doing a reaction to the dev insights for Season 23, the weapon tuning preview. I just got home. I'm not doing a script. Screw that. We're doing this live, baby. Now, a lot of you are going to be wondering, Mr. Gaming Counselor, are you really going to rip into them? I have no idea. I have not seen this, so you and me are going in fresh. We'll see whether we rip into Bungie for making horrible choices or great choices. So let's start. Hi, all. It's the weapons team here with a look at the Season 23 weapon changes. By the way, I like to preference this is, I think, a different team than the one team that messes with the armor. Because the armor team just doesn't understand how to do armor, apparently, because they nerf things to the ground and they don't know how to tweak things to make them actually viable. Most of the time. Look, I'll hold my peace for a video on that later. But weapons team, let's give them some grace. While we do have a few PvP changes in here for you to see, we wanted to share a deeper look at the PvE changes specifically. When we look at the weapon balance in PvE, we look at several things and ask ourselves some questions. This is not an exhaustive list, just some of the common ones. What is the intended role of the weapon? What ammo type does the weapon use? How safe is it to use the weapon? How easy is the weapon to use? How much damage per second, DPS, does it do compared to other options? When we take all the answers to the above questions, we can holistically see if a weapon is potentially over or underperforming in the sandbox within these bounds. Crazy, because you could ask most people in the community and they can just tell you what's good and what's bad. Or just look at YouTube. I mean, everyone's using the same thing for GMs and raids and trials. But go ahead, go look at your data. These questions, of course, assume that we have a solid baseline to compare to. So one of the very first things we need to do is look at which weapons answer the above questions in a satisfactory manner. Let's take autos, for example. Their intended role is mostly focused on ad clear. Or, I mean, let's be honest here. Any weapon, including SMGs, can be ad clear, but at higher tiers, unless it's Quicksilver, auto rifles feel bad to use, even for ad clear. As opposed to majors, burst DPS, or extended DPS. It still feels really bad in its role. They all use primer ammo for now. Winky face. I'm not excited for this. Like, we have Ariana's Vow, and we also have Forerunner. Forerunner is cool. I want it to be good, but who's using Forerunner? Exactly. Who's using Ariana's Vow? Why you waste your resources on that when you could use other anti-barrier weapons for less risk? Granted, I know this is looking at end game, but if you're not looking at end game as the core game, then no one's going to care, because you could literally use anything in any seasonal activity, any baseline, out patrol, any weapon is going to feel good. Anyways, they are moderately safe to use. Sure. As close to mid-range options allow you to be relatively further away from combatants. Although for the most part, they're not as safe as scout rifles, hand cannons, or pulse rifles. They are generally safer than sidearms and submachine guns. Even those you won't use those in GMs. Like, I would never use a sidearm or submachine gun because they suck. They are also relatively easy to use, with no less punishment for missing individual shots and a lower reliance on critical hits than pulse rifles, scout rifles, bows, and hand cannons, while being a bit more reliant than SMGs. Again, this is kind of like nonsensical, because most people, when they shoot, they go for crits. I don't know anyone who goes out of their way to intentionally hit body shots, because everything dies faster when you shoot it in the head. So this is nonsensical to me. They're currently dealing about 25% less DPS to minor combatants than SMGs. And SMGs in general, as we've talked, feel worse than most other options. Like, I don't know who, outside of Osio Striga, which feels like a pretty good selection, everything else feels bad. Like, SMGs, you might have 24% more damage to miners, but who's using an SMG? Who? Even with the anti-barrier SMG combo with auto rifles, most people would use an exotic auto rifle than an SMG, unless it's Osteo. It's because it's the only SMG that feels good. Given their extra range, it makes sense for them to deal less damage. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Because if they still, like, take for instance the battlegrounds for the moon when you're fighting against the Hive. The wizard, the final boss, literally, if you were trying to stay in the back, you're going to experience fall off damage, whether SMG or auto rifle. Like, that's why most people don't run auto rifles unless it's Quicksilver. But even then, I would rather use like Wish Ender or a Scout that has better range, so there's less fall off damage. But okay, it makes sense for them to deal less damage. However, given they are more reliant on headshots, this price seems a bit rough. And again, that's what I was saying. Like, even SMGs, you're going to want headshots. Like, the nonsensical body. Like, focus that assume that everyone is aiming for the head. Assume. Unless it's a bow, you can get away with like a Wish Ender body shot. But assume everyone is trying to land headshots. Right? Assume. Given these values, we can make an educated decision on how to balance auto rifles. This is, of course, only the first step in balancing process. After we make a change, we'll place test it extensively with an A/B comparisons, which this is debatable. This is a meme. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt, which is I don't, to get a better idea how it feels in game, to make sure we have. I mean, after Joe struggled to kill an overload, like, I have doubts of Bungie. I'm sorry. Sometimes we realize that after playtesting that a change is not enough, we will take a second pass in a future release to move the weapon closer to the ideal target. So they test something, they ship it half-baked, and you're going to tell me, oh, well, we'll do it later. Or maybe they don't ship it at all. I mean, okay. Sometimes we realize, we will take a second pass in the future. This process in part helped to lead our decision in Season 23 to increase their damage versus minor combatants by 10%. Wow, that's a lot. This should narrow the gap, that was sarcasm, effectiveness between SMGs and auto rifles without overstepping their bounds and invalidating another class of weapon. We hope this provides useful insight into how we look at balancing weapons for PvE, and that it will help you better understand many of the changes that we will be discussing below. Even though auto rifles will still not be used outside of exotics. It feels bad to use a legendary auto rifle. It just does. General, we discovered a couple weapons with mistimed ammunition loading. I don't care. Cool. Fix the animations. That's fine. Auto rifles. They were talked about 10% against combatants, miners, red bars. So you can totally use that. I probably won't use an auto rifle unless it's Quicksilver. Pulse rifles. Pulse rifle DPS in PvE is comparable to scout rifle damage. Is it? Because I've used Revision 0 and other pulse rifles, and they don't feel that good. But in the new sandbox, they are more closely aligned with hand cannons and auto rifles in terms of range, which is true. I tried using Revision 0 in the same GM, the moon one with the wizard, and I can tell you, you notice the drop off with pulse rifles so bad. It is so bad. So increased damage against minor red bars and majors, orange bars, by 12.5%. Okay, that's nice. I mean, maybe I will bust out my Val pulse rifle. Glaives. Now, before I even read this, I want to tell you, I am a glaive guy. I like glaives. I think being able to run up to an unstoppable and hold the shield and then take a slam to the face and not die is really cool and useful, especially when you're doing Make-A-Wish runs and GM randos. We wanted to improve how good it feels to use glaives as both a melee and projectile weapon. We also wanted to increase the uptime of the shield without pushing it too far into the realm of being overpowered. As such, we have made changes to 3 aspects of glaives. Projectiles. Glaive projectiles were generally just slow enough that they felt unreliable to use against fast-moving targets. An impulse amplifier was seen as a must-have perk for glaive usage in PvP. Yeah, I would agree, but mostly because impulse also has reload with also speed, and I think reload is a core component with glaives. The faster you reload, the better. Meanwhile, in PvP, okay, we're talking about PvP, but yes, mostly for reload and for projectile. In PvE, glaive projectiles felt underpowered compared to other special options. Yes, I felt like the only reason I would ever use a glaive is, like I said, as a shield. I would use it as a riot shield, and that's it. I would not actually try to fight things with the damage. In PvE, like fusions and shotguns. I mean, no one really uses shotguns except for the raid shotgun. No one's using regular shotguns, trust me. It's too risque. So we gave glaives a healthy portion of impulse amplifier buff at base, and increased their damage in PvE by a substantial amount to make them feel more worthy of their limited ammo. In PvP, the increased projectile speed has greatly improved their ease of use, so we brought the damage dealt by the projectile just a bit to keep glaives in line. Again, a lot of people use glaives in PvP. I try. It can be really nasty if you get it down, but it's like risk reward, right? You have to be really on point with click and aim, which if you're on a controller like me, for PvE, I'm hands on keyboard, but PvP, I feel better with sticks. It's just my confidence level and being able to get hunters who fly across the map. I'm more likely to flick with sticks than I am with the mouse, where I may be across the moon because I'm panicking. Anyways, increased projectile speed by 30%. Increased projectile damage by 25%. That is hefty. Decreased projectile damage in PvP. 123. Aggressive. Adaptive. 113. Rapid fires. 101. Melee. The long delay between firing the projectile and being able to melee made glaives feel clunky and unintuitive to use. So we have reduced that delay to a more manageable account. This delay exists so that people cannot dive onto other players and fire, then melee as a single event. I think we could all agree that's a good thing. But 3/4 of a second was definitely more conservative than what we need to prevent that behavior. It should now feel far more intuitive to shoot a projectile and follow up with a melee attack, especially for PvE, without feeling overly frustrating to fight someone using that combination. Reduce the delay after firing before you can melee from 0.75 to 0.2 seconds. Shields. Relying on dealing damage with a projectile to grant shield damage was a choice made to limit the amount of time the highly damage resistant shields had in Crucible and in in-game PvP content. Me, I'm the shield bro. That's me. Unfortunately, it effectively gated a significant portion of the weapon's effectiveness and made using a glaive without energy feel like you were wielding half a stick. It also felt like you were only just using a riot shield. Like, for me, that's what it was. It was having a panic riot shield. I gotta go for a res. Shield up. You can't touch this. No. Can't touch this. We wanted to increase the uptime of the shield so you could get a little bit more of the weapon fantasies to shine through. But we had to be careful not to give it too much or allow the shield to become too strong in competitive content. Made the shield energy now recharge passively when the glaive is held at a rate of 1%. Ooh, wait. So you have to hold it? So you can't store it and have it in the back. I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, if you're holding it and it's only 1% per second, that's 100 seconds for 100%. You have to pretty much hold it for like a minute and some time change, right? I mean, I don't know if that's really going to do anything to move the needle, but sure, go off, King. Maybe we're wrong. Set up the base glaive shield damage resistance to be tiered in PvP. Base glaive damage resistance remains at 50%. Damage resistance against primary ammo weapons and melee attacks have been reduced by 30%. Oh, so reduced by 30. So it's only going to be 20%. So if people are using shotguns, you're going to do 50% less, but someone uses a hand cannon, you're only going to block 20% of that damage in melee punches, which I think is stupid. Some of those melees are way too broken, especially the Warlock, but that's besides the point. We're continuing our trend of moving sniper rifles up a small amount of time to make sure we do not upset the encounter balance in PvE. What balance? Snipers are just not used. What are you talking about? No one uses snipers because they're bad. And you're not adding, if you added a mod every season for anti-barrier snipers, you would probably see an uptick with snipers because then there's a reason to use them. But as of now, that's another problem with this whole game is the selective choice of stupid anti-barrier artifacts. Like, it's so stupid. But I digress. Increase the damage to 15%. Even heavies. The heavies might, I might use Whisper of the Worm. Doubtful, but who knows? We'll see. Maybe it'll pop off. Okay. Exotic weapons. We're getting to the nitty gritty, baby. Vex Mythoclast. Although Vex received both a range buff and a PvE damage buff, it also got a nerf in its speed. Let's not forget, it got nerfed in the damage speed. Woo! We believe it has additional room to grow in PvE and find a unique role. I like what you're doing here. Don't hurt my heart. I love Vex. We've increased damage against minor and boss combatants. And we're going to be experimenting with a different style of anti-champion gameplay. Instead, having an intrinsic anti-champion perk, we are massively increasing the damage that the linear fusion rifle mod does to all champions. This places it in a unique space of being more of a Swiss Army knife and less of a specialist. We envision it as a weapon you can take into any activity, regardless of which champion type is present, and still have it an effective tool, especially when it utilizes in the concert with other anti-champion abilities. Increased damage versus minors by 10%. Bosses 25%. Champions 200% in linear fusion rifle mode. I sound disappointed because I am. First off, if it doesn't have an anti-champion compatible or even an artifact, why would I use it? It is pointless to run double primaries unless you're solo. Most teams, team compositions have something they could do for ad clear, champions, or both. Like, I like to use this if I were wanting to use a sniper rifle. Oh, it's getting buffed. Well, guess what? If fusions no longer have an artifact mod and snipers don't have an artifact mod, I'm not using them. Now, if you tell me, well, you could use a hand cannon and the Vex, why? Why? That is a wasted of a spot. I'm using the hand cannon just to stun one type of champion. And that's the problem with the crappy artifact system. It's garbage. If you want to do cool stuff like this, then you need to make sure there's a blanket of artifact options. Why would, and here's it, it's only to the fused linear, which means I have to hold it instead of using it to be able to do damage to champions, which if it's an unstoppable, I'm not going to do anything, even at 200%. It's not going to do anything to the champion because it doesn't do more damage. You have to stun it to do good damage. It's stupid. No, you're stupid. I'm not going to take this into a GM and expect, oh, I don't have any mods, or I have to sacrifice a mod to run this Vex that doesn't have a mod just to do 200% more damage with a mode I can only use 10% of the time. I like the boss damage. I like that it does more to 10% more to red bars. That's great. All that is fantastic, but it's nonsensical to increase champion damage when you're probably never going to use this if it's not a champion rotation, right? If it's not in the rotation of weapons that get a anti-champion. Swiss knife means it's able to deal with champions. This is not going to be able to deal with champions. For one, you have to have the charge, which forces you to just not use the second mode, which is why. And then two, you have to hope that you have someone else that can stun the champion. I don't know. I think this is stupid. I like the concept, but in the world of artifact mods, it's stupid because their system is stupid. Revision 0, an exotic pulse rifle that I want to love. It is probably the perfect example of a good exotic, like designed, the feel of it, everything about it is just awesome. A pulse rifle that turns into a sniper rifle mode, beautiful. It suffers for damage. Like I would not use this because it has fall off damage. And then the damage itself, like it doesn't matter which mode you choose, you're just plinking against red bars and it feels bad. I'm like, I'm just punching a thrall in the face and it's taking forever to die. As part of our anti-champion experiment, we are also increasing Revision 0 damage versus champions, although by a much lower count since the weapon also retains its intrinsic anti-champion barrier. 100%. Again, that's good, but the reason a lot of people don't use Revision 0 is not necessarily because of the anti-champion. It's because it just feels bad against red bars. And that's the big thing. Can the gun do good against champions? Can it do decent chip damage to bosses? Can it deal with ad clearing? These are the buckets that most people try to fill in with a gun. Can it do one of these three things, or can do all of it? Can it do two of the three? And Revision 0 can do all right chip damage. The ad clear is very mid, and the champion is probably the shining point. But then you have stuff like Wish Ender, which is good damage, has good range, it has good anti-champion, and it could do good boss damage. It hits all three buckets. And I see Wish Ender. Do I think Wish Ender is too strong? No, I think it's where exotics that fill an anti-champion position, I think it feels good. Why would I not use Revision 0? The sniper is fantastic. I would use it over Wish Ender if it did better to red bars for ad clear. Like if I wanted to do more damage. But it feels really weak. And the range feels horrible. Thorn. In Season 23, Thorn will get both a catalyst to bring its strength up in PvP, finally, and change the base behavior to make it more fun to use in PvE. Okay? Picking up a remnant can overflow the magazine to 40. Yo. The catalyst, 20 range. The stability, 10. Getting kills or picking up a remnant grants additional range in handling and mobility. Okay. That sounds exciting because Thorn does really good damage in PvE right now. It does really good damage. Like with the increase to red bars, it is going to be a fun weapon to use. Glaive, class glaives. Alongside the glaives, we have also done some tuning to the exotics, which no one ever uses them because they're trash. So let's just jump into it. What are you doing? Granting 1 ammo when you activate the perk. So you can use it even if you're out of ammo. Okay. No longer passively drain shield energy when you special reload to activate the perk, which I don't understand why that was a thing in the first place. No longer deactivated by reloading or stowing the weapon. I've never used it long enough to notice that, but okay. Edge of Intent. This is Warlock. Increasing the AoE, helping it reach nearby allies. It's working with Solar 3.0. Change the effect of the healing turret projectile to grant cure and provides restoration. Okay. The AoE is 8 meters, so bigger distance. Increase ammo from 4 to 5. I never used it. I have nothing to comment on it. Improvement, cool. Will it be used? Time will tell. Edge of Action. I know about the Titan bubble because people used it with Stasis Titan to cheese Riven. I remember that. So I know what it does. Passing through the bubble now grants bonus reload speed, handling, and a small amount of stacking bonus in addition to overshield. Okay. Reduce the health of the bubble from 8,000 to 2,400 to account for the increased uptime. I mean, you could only fit like a couple people in there anyways. I think most people just used it for the cheese. Edge of Concurrent. This is the Hunter Glaive. This was the first one I got, and I was so disappointed. Lightning Seeker now jolts target on impact. Reduce the direct hit damage of Lightning Seeker to account for the free ammo granted. So you're telling me this thing will always get free ammo to be able to use its ability? Okay, so it's like a free jolt. I mean, I'm sure there's a build there. Osteo Striga. Oh no. What are you doing to the only SMG that feels good to use in endgame? Osteo has been, quite frankly, far too powerful for the ease of use it provides when it comes to ad clearing PvE. It has more range than most other SMGs, does not require kills, and does not rely heavily on precision aim to activate one of the strongest AoEs we've ever had in Destiny. And yet, that's the only reason it's good as an SMG. Because it has decent range, and you don't need headshots, and it actually does good ad clear. In addition, the lingering poison damage has benefited from the damage scaler that SMGs get in PvE content, which was intended buff direct impact damage. This scaler, which is one of the highest scalers of any weapon in the game, is pushing the poison damage to such an extreme level that it's difficult for any other weapon to compete in the add clear role. That's not true. That's not true. It is good, better than probably Thorn. It's probably better than Necrochasm, which is mid. It's probably better than any other Sorrow because they're all mid in what they do, except for Thorn. I mean, even Thorn, the poison's kind of mid. No one used SMGs anyways. This was the SMG because the other one just felt bad. But okay, go off, King. While it is likely that this change will not move the needle on Osteostriga by a substantial amount, it will at least slightly less of an outlier compared to other add clear weapons. To preempt, I mean, because listen, Quicksilver does a lot of damage, especially with the grenade launcher. Unless they plan on nerfing it. We're going to find out if they nerf Quicksilver, which I hope they don't. Preempt the argument. Let's see. While it is likely that this change will it will at least to preempt the argument. Buffing other weapons up to the same level would be power creep to an extreme degree and very unhealthy for the game as a whole. So it is not something we're going to explore. SMGs don't feel good in endgame. They have bad range. They rely on the crit damage, and they don't do that much damage to red bars. They don't do what they're supposed to do, which is add clear. Why would I use that when I can use a bow or a scout rifle or now hand cannons? Hand cannons feel better in every aspect than SMGs. And SMGs have been nerfed and nerfed and nerfed and nerfed. They have just been constantly nerfed. Why the hell would I ever use an SMG over Quicksilver? This is the most brain dead Bungie degen hour statement I've ever seen. You don't play your game. I know you don't play your game because we all watched Joe struggle to kill an overload. He made the overload look like a better boss than Nezarec and Root of Nightmares. Like, that overload was harder than Nezarec. Remove the SMG damage bonus scaler that was affecting the poison. This brings Osteo Poison down to match standard necrotic grip poison. Though, as an exotic, it will still deal 40% bonus damage against minors. Whatever, you're trash. Salvation's grip. Place a speed limit on the detonation when damaging stasis crystals. This will help prevent the detonation from being able to shatter too many crystals on a single frame, which would sometimes kick the player to orbit. Ooh. Winter Bite. We did not want to leave Winter Bite out of the glaive improvement pass, so we made it a little bit stronger and a little bit less lethal to the user. Increased detonation damage of the large projectile by 25%. Self-damage blast has been halved, and the self-damage has been reduced. I just don't understand why we had to have self-damage anyways. Some of the reasons are so stupid. All right, perks. Danger Zone. We made a small change to how Danger Zone works on rocket launchers. Wait, was Danger Zone on a rocket? You can figure it out for yourself when Season 23 drops. Small change to how Danger Zone works on rockets. Danger Zone increases the blast radius with more enemies around you. I think they're trying to be cheeky or cute, and I don't think I want to make a very, very educated and knowledgeable. This is not going to still be used on rockets. It's a small change, but I don't think it's going to change the needle at all. But okay, go try. That's what they thought about the other perk, the double loader, whatever it's called. I forgot. It's so, yeah, they had to fix that. So good luck. Heavy grip. We discovered that heavy grip perk was slightly increasing incoming flinch. That was not intended, so we removed it. Precision instrument. The difference between precision instrument and enhanced precision instrument was barely noticeable in practice. So we wanted to differentiate the two. We increased the enhanced precision instrument damage bonus at max stacks from 26 to 30. First off, it's still trash. The base should be 30. The base should be 30 because no one wants to use this trash perk. I have an adept bow with precision instrument, and it lasts 2 seconds and it's gone. It is trash. It is a trash perk. Don't use it. This does not change its usability at all. Kinetic Tremors. Oh god, don't nerf it. Kinetic Tremors is actually good. It is actually good. Please don't kill it. I just got my SMG with Kinetic Tremors, and I was going to try to bite my own words by making it good. Oh, Iron Lords, don't make it bad. All right, here we go. We wanted to make the activation requirement more consistent across archetypes, so we're changing the number of hits needed to trigger it on some weapons. Pulse rifles, common reduced from 12 to 11, enhanced increases. Wait, does that mean we're going to get enhanced kinetic tremors? Okay, we're getting a pulse next season that you can craft with kinetic tremors. Why would they say that if they weren't going to change it? Non-burst sidearms, common reduced from 12 to 8. Okay, so we're getting non-burst sidearm next season too. Enhanced reduced from 9 to 7. Future, in the season 23 mid-season patch and patch that will launch the final shape, we have a host of new changes for you to try. Some highlights to look forward to. Bow tuning and PvP. So many people complaining about bows. I hate the PvP community. I don't even use bows in PvP, but I just know this is gonna do something in PvE. You know it. And this is why I hate the PvP. Every time, it's always the PvP that gets PvE stuff nerfed. It's not even funny. Additional weapon tuning for checkmate and aiming at promoting a better diversity of weapons. Far future. Necrochasm will be getting a buff to extend the duration of the poison damage over time effect it applies from the cursed Thrall explosion. It will also have a new catalyst called One for Thrall, which grants a moderate period of increased damage, rain, and aim assist after you damage 3 enemies in quick succession. Oh my god! Damaging 3 or more enemies while this perk refreshes the timer. That is an exotic raid perk. Why was it given outlaw from the get-go, you absolute dumpster fire morons? This sounds... I might become a necromain with this. I'm not kidding you. That sounds so good. Buffs the truth, even though they nerfed it. And they nerfed it, I think, Colony and Deadman's Tail, as well as other exotics. Heavy grenade launchers will get a substantial inventory buff. I still don't think that's going to change the needle. I don't think that's going to change. I don't think that's going to change it. I truly, truly don't think that's going to change the needle. Unless, yeah, I just don't think so. But that's it. That is your weapons tuning. Obviously, I had some choice words. I think this is cool. I love this. This is stupid. Again, if you were pro double primaries, you are probably one of the people that struggle for GMs. Yes, we spotted you. Unless you're doing solo, in which case this is fantastic. But I don't know why you would use this for solo if you need double champion perks. Again, I always like running double champion perks, so I always use the non primary version. I have a primary that can use it, and my exotic, if there is no special weapon, I always use a special weapon to fill in that slot if I can. That way I have balanced the tiers, and then I have my heavy for DPS. In this case, you could get away with like Unstoppable, or is it Overload LMG? Either way, you could use that for Ad Clear and for your champion mod, and then you could use like Wish Ender for DPS, and then use, or you could have used the Vex, and then use whatever. But I think this works in a world where there's more of a variety of anti-barrier artifact perks, or it's easy to maintain perks that intrinsically stun, like let's say Radiance. If getting of all classes could easily keep Radiant active, this would be fantastic. Outside of the fact that you need to have charges on Vex for linear, like I don't understand why you would ever use this over something that is guaranteed to always be anti-champion, and that's why this is cool. I will probably use this as a genetic weapon that I'm not going to use in GMs though, unless there's a mod for it. This I think is pointless. It needs better minor control. Like, it feels, I'll take it because I like it, but as someone who likes the gun, I feel like I'm plinking ads and it takes forever to kill something. Thorn, all these, everything else is okay except for this. This is them who, they don't even play their game, and they don't understand that SMGs in general just don't feel good in endgame at all. Like, I would not use any SMG in endgame. I would rather use a auto rifle for said distance. And if I'm not using auto rifle, I'm using hand cannon. Like, my Fatebringer is my baby. It has 15k kills, and it's only going to go higher because it's nasty. Like, people are not going to use things. This was good because it felt good. It felt reasonable to use. No one felt shoehorned that I have to use Striga. If I want to use the SMG, it was the only option because it was the only one that was good. Winner's Buy is a joke. Perks, I think these are nothing except for this. All this is nothing burgers. I don't see this being good. This is all nothing burgers. And this is depression in a bottle. I expect PvE nerfs because of this, because they don't know how to balance their own game. Again, this is also the weapons team, not the armor team, who obviously doesn't know what they're doing. I'm a corresponding being nerfed to the Oblivion in PvE. But yeah, I'll wait. I always wait to see and then give my feedback. But usually when I criticize something, it's usually I'm pretty right. Like, and people complain about it, and you sit there and like, oh well, I told you. But I'm Mr. Gaming Counselor. That's my thoughts. What do you think? I have a little bit more faith in the PvE weapon, side of things. Even though they're nerfing PvP, I have a little bit more faith. But also Bungie in general, I don't know. Like, in general, Bungie hasn't been doing much for me to really feel confident in them. Like, I'm still waiting on some confidence building, but I do like the rest of what I see. I think they're only ups. Will they really make much of a difference? We'll find out in the wild. Let me know in the comments down below what you liked, what you didn't like, and whether you agreed with me. If you didn't, don't tell me I'm dumb or whatever. Like, actually, let's have a conversation, because I'm gonna make fun of you if you're just one of those brain dead morons. I just don't think you're right because I'm right. I mean, I actually use these weapons out in the wild in GMs, day ones, whatever. Like, I have experience with these weapons, except for the exotic gloves, and I didn't really give much info on that because of that. So if I don't use a weapon, I'm gonna be honest about it, right? That's even said about that glaive damage. I don't use it for damage. I used it for riot shield. So anyone who actually cared about this damage, you can let me know if you think 25% is good enough or not. For me, it was all just about using the shield. I think the 1% isn't going to move the needle for that specifically. All right, that's it. I'm out. Have yourself a good one. I'm Mr. Gaming Counselor. Don't forget to be the best version of yourself. And as always, don't forget to game out. Huzzah. Oh, green screen just died.